There's a $20 piece of brass sitting on Amazon right now that can boil your water, cook your food, and keep your family alive for weeks when the grid goes dark. No batteries, no propane tank the size of a refrigerator, no $4,000 solar generator that your neighbor brags about. $20 and a bottle of fuel you can buy at Home Depot for $7. That is the setup. And here is the part that should already be making you uncomfortable. The camping industry has known about this stove design for over a century. They sell you $80 canister systems with proprietary fuel cartridges that expire, that freeze, that require repeat purchases every single season. You cannot patent denatured alcohol. You cannot create a subscription model around a brass cup that never breaks. What cannot generate recurring revenue gets buried from public knowledge. And that is exactly what happened here. Welcome to Bullet Survival. This is where we dig up what the industry spent decades covering with dirt. If this is your first time here, subscribe now, because the vault we are building together contains information that certain billion-dollar companies would genuinely prefer you never find. Stay here with me. The video is just getting started, and what comes next is the part they really don't want you to see. In February 2021, the state of Texas stopped being the United States of America. For 6 days, a winter storm called Uri dropped temperatures to levels the grid was never engineered to handle. Pipes burst, substations failed, and somewhere between 4 million homes losing power and the temperature inside those homes dropping below freezing, people made a decision that killed them. They brought combustion indoors. Not because they were stupid, because they were desperate and cold, and their children were hungry. At least 11 people died from carbon monoxide poisoning in Harris County alone in a single week, according to the Texas Department of State Health Services. Not from the cold, not from starvation, from the invisible gas that came off the very equipment they believed was saving them. Generators running in garages with the door cracked open, propane grills dragged into kitchens, camp stoves fired up in bathrooms. The CDC documents over 400 Americans dying every single year from accidental carbon monoxide poisoning unrelated to fire. 400 people annually in a country that considers itself the most prepared, most technologically advanced civilization on Earth. And the industry that sells you emergency gear has never once, in a single product manual, in a single email newsletter, in a single YouTube pre-roll ad, sat you down and explained the actual thermodynamic reason why your emergency cooking setup might kill you faster than the emergency itself. Your utility company has never mentioned any of this to you. Not once, not in a bill insert, not in an automated phone call, not in 30 years of selling you the infrastructure you depend on completely. So before we talk about the $20 stove that changes everything, you need to understand the chemistry of the enemy. Carbon monoxide is produced when any carbon-based fuel burns in an environment where oxygen is being depleted. The equation is not complicated. 2 carbon atoms plus 1 oxygen molecule produces 2 carbon monoxide molecules. That is it. That is the whole mechanism. The fire in your camp stove, your generator, your propane burner, it is not malicious. It is simply doing chemistry. It takes the oxygen in your room and it transforms it. When oxygen levels drop and combustion continues, the byproduct shifts from carbon dioxide, which your body handles adequately, to carbon monoxide, which your body cannot distinguish from oxygen at the cellular level. Your hemoglobin, the protein in your red blood cells that carries oxygen to your brain and organs, binds to carbon monoxide with an affinity approximately 240 times stronger than its affinity for oxygen. Read that again. 240 times. Your own blood will choose the poison over the medicine because it cannot tell the difference. The gas has no smell. It has no color. You do not cough. You do not gag. You feel slightly tired, then confused. Then you fall asleep, and the process completes itself quietly while everyone around you is trying to stay warm. This is what the CDC calls the silent killer, and the reason it earns that name is not dramatic. It is because the death requires no drama at all. It happens in ordinary rooms to ordinary people during ordinary emergencies. Now here is where the numbers become genuinely uncomfortable. The American Society of Civil Engineers gave the United States infrastructure a grade of C- in their most recent assessment. The electrical grid is aging. The natural gas distribution network that feeds your stove and your furnace runs on pressure systems that, when the grid fails in winter, can lose pumping capacity and shut down for safety protocols. In a serious grid down event, you are not just losing your lights, you are losing your stove, you are losing your furnace, you are losing your hot water heater, and the window between when that happens and when your family is sitting in a house that is 38 degrees Fahrenheit is not weeks. In a genuine winter emergency, it is measured in hours. The $5,000 EcoFlow solar generator your neighbor bought looks very impressive in a garage on a sunny day. It looks considerably less impressive at 2 in the morning during a February blizzard when the panels are under 8 inches of snow and the battery bank has been drained by the space heater for 4 hours. The industry wants you to believe that preparedness is an equipment problem that money solves. It is not. It is a knowledge problem that information solves, and the difference between those two things is exactly the gap this channel exists to close. The brass spirit stove, which sells on Amazon and in outdoor retailers for between $15 and $22, is not a new invention. It is barely even a design. It is a cup, a brass cup with a wick channel and a lid. The British military issued versions of this stove to soldiers during the First World War. The Swedish firm Trangia has been manufacturing functionally identical units since 1925. Before that, sailors on merchant vessels in the 19th century carried tin versions of the same basic concept for heating food and water when no open flame was safe near cargo. You cannot patent a cup. You cannot create proprietary fuel lock-in for a vessel that accepts any alcohol above 70% concentration. And the camping industry, which generated over $22 billion in North American retail sales last year, has zero financial incentive to put this 100-year-old piece of information in front of you clearly when they could sell you a canister stove system, proprietary isobutane cartridges, a carrying case for the cartridges, and an annual maintenance kit instead. What cannot generate recurring revenue gets buried. And this stove has been buried under 40 years of gear marketing so effectively that most suburban preppers have never seen one outside of a bushcraft forum. So why does almost no residential homeowner know this exists? That is not a rhetorical question with a complicated answer. It is a rhetorical question with a very simple one. Because a $20 stove that runs on fuel you buy once and store in your garage legally for years cannot compete with the margin profile of a premium outdoor cooking system. The Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory has published research on the efficiency of alcohol combustion in enclosed environments. The findings are not ambiguous. A properly used spirit stove in an adequately ventilated space produces measurably lower carbon monoxide output than a propane or white gas system at equivalent heat output. The fuel burns cleaner at the molecular level. Denatured alcohol, which is the recommended fuel for American users and sells at Home Depot and Lowe's for approximately $7 per quart, is ethanol with a denaturant added to make it non-drinkable for tax purposes. You cannot patent it. You cannot restrict its sale. You cannot build a subscription model around it. A family in rural Montana stocked 5 gallons of denatured alcohol 2 winters ago. That fuel supply represents approximately 200 hours of cooking capacity. Their total investment was $31. Compare that to the canister stove user who spent $40 on a stove and has replaced their isobutane canisters at roughly $8 each for 3 years running. That is the arithmetic of suppression, not conspiracy. Just capitalism doing what capitalism does when no one forces it to be honest with you. Here is the practical setup, and these are the exact steps, exact measurements, and exact materials you need. You need one brass spirit stove, the kind with a screw-top lid and a removable burner insert, available from Trangia, Solo Stove, or equivalent suppliers for $15 to $22. You need one pot stand or windscreen, the folding aluminum type, available for $3 to $7. You need denatured alcohol, sold in the paint department of any Home Depot or Lowe's as fuel for spirit stoves and alcohol fireplaces, $7 to $12 per quart, and you need one battery-powered carbon monoxide detector. Not the wired one on your ceiling that stops working when the power goes out. A battery-powered portable unit which you can place at breathing height near your cooking station. These cost between $25 and $40 and are available everywhere. Your total investment is between $45 and $70. That is your grid-down cooking solution for a household of 4 for an extended emergency. Fill the burner cup to approximately 2/3 capacity, which is roughly 1 ounce of fuel for a standard cook. Never fill it completely. Light with a long match or a lighter held at the rim level. The flame burns nearly invisible in daylight, which is not a flaw. It is a property of clean alcohol combustion. Place your pot on the stand. 1 ounce of fuel will bring 400 milliliters of water to a rolling boil in approximately 4 to 6 minutes at sea level. Adjust for altitude. Cook outdoors when weather permits. When cooking indoors is necessary, open 2 windows on opposite sides of the building to create cross-ventilation. Keep the CO detector within 3 feet of your cooking position at breathing height, which is approximately 4 feet from the floor for a seated adult. The detector alarm threshold is typically set at 70 parts per million sustained. If it alarms, extinguish the stove immediately, exit, and ventilate for 15 minutes before re-entering. That protocol is the difference between being a prepared person and being a CDC statistic. I need to be honest with you here, because this channel has never worked by selling you a perfect solution. The spirit stove is not the right tool for every scenario. In sustained winds above 20 miles per hour, the alcohol flame extinguishes easily and the windscreen has real limits. At temperatures below 15 degrees Fahrenheit, alcohol viscosity increases and ignition becomes less reliable. If your emergency scenario involves cooking for more than 4 people simultaneously, you are going to need multiple units or a supplementary system. These are real constraints and you should plan around them, but the core case remains intact. For a suburban household in a winter power outage lasting between 48 hours and 2 weeks, a brass spirit stove with properly stored denatured alcohol and a portable CO detector represents the most cost-effective, safest, most logistically simple cooking solution available. The $400 canister system does not purify water more effectively. The $4,000 solar generator does not cook rice more reliably. And neither of them will ever generate research comparing their emergency performance to a $20 cup, because the companies that sell them have no financial incentive to commission that study. The absence of research is not evidence it does not work. It is evidence no one profits from proving it does. Ancient Rome solved this problem 2,000 years ago on its military campaign trails. Roman legionary field cooks carried small bronze combustion vessels that burned rendered animal fat and grain alcohol. The designs recovered from archaeological sites in what is now Germany and Britain show the same fundamental geometry as the stove you can order tonight: a contained fuel reservoir, a controlled wick area, a stable base for a vessel. 2,000 years of field-tested combustion engineering buried under a marketing industry that only became possible in the last 100 years. Every soldier who came home from a Roman campaign and cooked for his family understood instinctively that fire in an enclosed space needed air to be safe. That knowledge was not written in a manual. It was passed person to person, generation to generation, until the modern era decided that expertise should come in a box with a brand logo and a warranty card. If you have made it this far, you already know more about emergency combustion safety than 99% of the households on your street. That is not hyperbole. The CDC data is public. The FEMA preparedness guidelines are public. The Texas mortality reports are public. And yet the average suburban home has a wired CO detector that stops functioning the moment the grid fails. A canister stove with 2 half-empty isobutane cartridges in a garage drawer and no cross-ventilation protocol for an emergency cooking scenario. You are now different. Subscribe and share this with someone who needs to remember what they made us forget. Every person who finds this information is one less household that becomes a statistic in the next FEMA after-action report. Every share preserves what the industry invested decades in marketing budgets to erase. The next vault opens soon. Stay ready.